In this week of SportChaser, I'm going to be giving you everything you need to know about the NFL Week 6, starting with keys to the game, storylines you may be unaware of, and lastly, predictions for each and every game this week. Stay tuned, Chasing Undefeated is coming right up. In this new segment of Chasing Undefeated, I'm going to be giving you everything that you need to know about each and every game every single week in the NFL before giving my predictions where we can see, can I have a perfect week in the NFL? Starting with the first game of the weekend, and it's the international game between the Denver Broncos and the New York Jets. The Jets are the only winless team in the entire NFL. And the Broncos have one of the best defenses in the NFL, which is something that I thought that we would be saying about the Jets after Aaron Glenn came in as head coach. Their defense was supposed to be the only bright spot of their team, but actually the only bright spot of their team is their run game. Justin Fields and Breece Hall have looked great so far this season, but their defense is what's struggled. Breece Hall now has the backfield all to himself after Braylon Allen went down with an injury early this season. But against a top 5 run defense that the Broncos have, I don't know how much this is going to help. The Broncos have the most sacks in the league. They also are 5th best in yards per game allowed total, as well as the 2nd lowest points per game allowed. If the Jets even want a chance in this game, their defense is going to have to be able to hold on strong enough to allow Justin Fields, Breece Hall, and Garrett Wilson to get going. But against this tough Broncos defense in an international game, I just don't know if that's going to happen. I have the Broncos winning this one and covering the spread, which leads us right into the early slate. Arizona Cardinals taking on the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are coming off a blowout win against the Raiders, and the Cardinals are coming off of one of the worst losses that we've seen all season against the Titans. The collapse that they had, being up almost 28-6 to then losing the game, was horrendous. And the Cardinals come into Indianapolis facing off against the Colts, who have been one of the best teams so far this season. They're 4-1, led by Jonathan Taylor on offense, as well as Daniel Indiana Jones, who has looked great all season long. For the Cardinals, they allow the 4th lowest points per game, but they average the 8th lowest yards per game on offense. This on top of the fact that Kyler Murray did not practice today, Thursday. Whether or not he plays in this game will be a huge tell of whether or not the Cardinals will be able to compete in this game, let alone win. That being said, I don't think his decision impacts mine. I have the Colts winning this game and covering the spread. This next one's a bit tricky. Chargers versus Dolphins. The Chargers looked great in the first 2 weeks, and then they've slowly pulled back a little bit up until last week when in the mid-second quarter against the Commanders, they had a steep decline as they really did not look the same after midway through the second quarter, and then Marion Hampton went down. And this Dolphins team, they are not good at stopping the run. That is actually what they are worst at, and that is how teams have been able to beat them all season long. But the problem is, who are the Chargers going to use to run the ball? Najee Harris is out from earlier in the season with an injury. He's on IR. Now, Marion Hampton got hurt in the game against the Commanders this past weekend. He's out on the IR as well. Who's going to be rushing the ball, and can they have success against this Miami Dolphins defense? The answer is probably. However, we just don't know how they're going to perform. Until we do, I can't say that Miami is going to get dominated the way that they have in the past so far this season. However, I do think the Chargers are going to be able to sneak this one out. Miami is good, but without Tyreek Hill, their offense is definitely limited. Devon Achane and Jalen Waddle are very solid skill position players. I just don't know if that's going to be enough. I have the Dolphins being able to cover the 4.5-point spread, but I just think that the Chargers are going to be able to turn it on when the Dolphins aren't. I think they're going to come out having back-to-back losses and get the bounce-back win here against Miami. This next one is really tough to predict. The New England Patriots taking on the New Orleans Saints. Last week, we saw Drake May have the game of his life. Or did we? Because if you look at his stat line, he didn't look all that great. However, at the end of the game when it mattered most, yeah, he did. He was able to connect with Diggs multiple times for huge gains as they were able to separate themselves from the Buffalo Bills, getting the win in Buffalo on Sunday Night Football. That was Drake May's biggest win of his entire career, but now he goes into New Orleans, who's only 1-4, so you may say, well, this should be an easy game. Well, New Orleans has looked good this season, and I know they don't have the talent, but Kellen Moore has been able to get physicality and toughness out of his team each and every week. He has not allowed games to get out of control, and he has been able to make sure that he's getting the most out of his team, despite not being the most talented. But if Drake May and Stephon Diggs have found their groove, then I don't know how the New Orleans Saints are going to win this game. but we'll have to see if that's the case. However, one thing to note, last week, the New Orleans Saints got their first win of the season against the New York Giants. They were able to do so because they forced 5 turnovers in that game. The Patriots, who've had fumble problems all season long, are now facing a team who's able to turn the ball over frequently. This is my first big upset of the week, the New Orleans Saints beating the New England Patriots. We head over to the AFC North for a divisional matchup between the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Last week, in an international game against the Vikings, Dillon Gabriel got his first ever start for the Cleveland Browns. Against an elite Minnesota defense, he looked solid. They almost were able to sneak out the win in the end, but the Browns restricted what Dillon Gabriel was able to do. This week, I expect them to loosen the reins a little bit, allow Dillon Gabriel to show them what he's got. Because if you drafted 2 rookie quarterbacks this draft class, which they did, Dillon Gabriel needs to have his chance to prove himself if you're really going to even find out anything from him. So I expect to see Dillon Gabriel get a little bit more freedom in this offense this first week. Last week was a tough environment for him, playing in an international game in his first ever NFL start against an elite Minnesota team, and he played good. I want to see how he plays against this Pittsburgh Steelers team. But the Steelers are coming off a bye. If Jaylen Warren is healthy in this game, that makes a huge difference. And Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf, before their bye, had their best game as a quarterback-wide receiver duo that we've seen so far this season. One other thing to note is the Pittsburgh Steelers have forced 7 more turnovers than they've committed this season. Meanwhile, the Browns have committed 4 more than they've forced. This turnover battle, I believe, will be a huge difference maker in this game, as I have the Pittsburgh Steelers winning this game in a close battle against the Cleveland Browns. Dallas heads into Carolina to face off against the Panthers this weekend. Dallas so far this season has been the tale of 2 sides. On the one side, their offense puts up the most yards per game in the entire NFL and the 4th most points per game. However, their defense allows the most yards per game and the 4th most points per game. For the Panthers, if Chuba Hubbard comes back, Chuba and Rico Dowdle may make a scary 1A, 1B duo after what we saw last week from Rico Dowdle. If not, Rico Dowdle should still claim this backfield in a revenge game against his former team, the Dallas Cowboys. With a not-so-scary defense, Carolina has every opportunity to put up numbers in this game. However, I don't trust them. And since I don't trust them, I'm going to take Dallas to cover the spread and win this game. And we head into my game of the week, Seattle taking on Jacksonville. Both of these teams have put up numbers so far this season. Last week, we saw it. Seattle took on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where they lost on a game-ending field goal from Tampa Bay. But their offense looked incredible. Sam Darnold had one of the best games of his entire career. Jackson Smith and Jigba looked phenomenal. And the RB duo from Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet is elite. On top of that, A.J. Barner stepped up. But on the other side, the Jacksonville Jaguars are coming off their biggest win in 3 years. And I think that this will be an offensive shootout. Both of these teams are coming off of emotional games. The Seahawks losing that one to the Buccaneers and the Jags winning theirs against the Chiefs. And both of these offenses are top 10 in points per game. My prediction is that this is going to be one of the most entertaining games of the week, and the Seattle Seahawks will not only cover the spread, they will win this game outright, making it an upset alert. And going from upset and game of the week to my lock of the week, the Rams covering the spread and blowing out the Baltimore Ravens comfortably. This Rams team is coming off of a brutal loss to the San Francisco 49ers last Thursday night. However, that gave them more time than other teams to prepare for this game against the Baltimore Ravens. It's looking like Lamar Jackson will not be playing in this game. And if Cooper Rush is starting yet again, I do not have any faith in this Baltimore offense. And I even have less faith in their Baltimore defense. Their defense has not looked good, and the Rams put up the 2nd most yards per game in the NFL. I think Kyren Williams will have an incredible game. Puka Nacua, we know he's going to. And I just have no faith in the Baltimore Ravens to keep up with the Rams. I think the Rams blow the Ravens out of the water because the Ravens' offense without Lamar is averaging 15 points per game. I don't think they have a chance, and I'm taking the Rams to destroy the Ravens. Moving on, Tennessee versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Yuck. This one might get ugly fast. Both of these teams have had struggles on offense. Both of these teams have had struggles on defense. Both of these teams have had struggles turning the ball over. Unless you're a fan of either of these teams, I recommend watching Red Zone as opposed to this game. But my prediction is that Ashton Genty is the best player on the field, and I think that he's going to show it. Ashton Genty will carry the Las Vegas Raiders to their second win of the season over the Tennessee Titans. In this next game, we have a new quarterback appearance, Joe Flacco, who just got traded from the Cleveland Browns to the Cincinnati Bengals, who just lost Joe Burrow and started Jake Browning for a couple weeks, but he has not looked good. So they made the trade for Joe Flacco, and now they face off against the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay. Yikes. This is going to be a tough game for Joe Flacco. He's making a start for his third team in the AFC North, but I don't think that this is going to be his first win with the Bengals. The Bengals offense has Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Chase Brown. Those three alone can always keep a team in contention. But the Bengals' offensive line and defense has struggled so far this year. We knew the offensive line was not going to be good, and we knew that the defense wasn't. And although Joe Flacco is an upgrade over Jake Browning, I just don't think it's going to be enough. The Packers, luckily, are coming off of a bye. They started the season hot, 2-0, beating the Lions and the Commanders, two playoff teams from last year. But then after that, they lost to Cleveland, and then they tied against the Dallas Cowboys. Their defense is now asking a lot of questions. But this bye week should have given them time to regroup a little bit. They now face a Bengals team who could run up the score, but if they can get past their offensive line and pressure Flacco early, the Packers will win this game, and I believe that they will. The spread, I don't know. 14-point spread is the second biggest spread we've seen so far this NFL season, so I'm going to take the Bengals on that. However, I do think that the Packers win this game convincingly. And the final game of the 4 p.m. slate is one of the best, San Francisco versus Tampa Bay. San Francisco, after all of the injuries, still look great, and Tampa is led by Baker Money Mayfield and Emeka Egbuka, who have been phenomenal all season long. Both of these teams are coming off great wins on game-winning field goals. The Niners, despite being banged up, have looked great offensively with Mac Jones at the helm. Whether or not that makes Mac Jones an elite quarterback or a system quarterback is up to you to decide, but San Francisco has the #1 passing offense in the league right now. And for Tampa, Baker Mayfield is in the MVP conversation, and he might even be running it. He's led this team to a 4-1 record so far through 5 weeks, atop of the NFC South, and the 5th best passing offense in the entire league. But the defenses might be what comes in clutch here. San Francisco allows only 19.6 points per game, while Tampa allows 26.4. That should make a big difference in this game, keeping it a lot closer than some people may realize. However, I trust Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers more than I trust the San Francisco 49ers. With that being said, I think this is going to be a one-possession, really close game, but I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the San Francisco 49ers. And now that we got all the afternoon games done, we move into Sunday Night Football, where the Lions head into Arrowhead against the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to be honest. This one does not make sense to me. I don't understand why the Chiefs are favored to win this game. The Chiefs have just not impressed me this season. Their 2 wins against the Giants and the Ravens, who the Ravens didn't even have Lamar Jackson in that game after all their defense got banged up. The Lions played them the week before, but Lamar was there, and the Lions won. Detroit is coming off of a somewhat scary win against the Bengals, who almost had a bit of a comeback towards the end of that game, but Detroit still won that one against Cincy, while the Chiefs sold their game against the Jaguars. Outside of week 1 for Detroit, the Lions are averaging over 40 points per game, and they have a top 8 defense in yards allowed. And like I said, the Chiefs just have not impressed me. They've had close losses to the Chargers and Eagles, 2 teams that we believe to be pretty good. Sure, for the sake of argument, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. But then the Giants, they did not destroy them the way that they should have, considering the fact that Russ was the quarterback there who got benched after the week. And against the Ravens, who did not have Lamar Jackson, they had Cooper Rush starting that game. They allowed the Ravens to score 20 points. Yes, they won the game, and they scored over 30, but that's because the Ravens' defense was not good. But they allowed Cooper Rush and the Baltimore Ravens to score 20 points on them. I'm not impressed with either of those wins. If the Ravens can put up 20 against the Chiefs without Lamar Jackson, imagine what the Lions can do with Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jameson Williams, David Montgomery, and more. This game will be very high scoring. There's going to be a lot of yards. I think both quarterbacks will pass for over 300 yards. But I just don't see how the Chiefs are going to be able to keep up with this Detroit Lions offense. I have the Lions winning outright, making this my next upset of the week. And that wraps up Sunday. Moving on into Monday night, where we have 2 games this week. Starting with the first one, Buffalo taking on Atlanta. Buffalo, coming off of a loss to the Patriots at home on Sunday Night Football, is brutal for them. They were the last undefeated team to fall, but they did. And the Atlanta Falcons are coming off of a bye, making us ask the question, which Michael Penix Jr. are we going to see? Are we going to see the Michael Penix Jr. we saw the week before the bye against the Commanders, or the one before that against the Panthers? How involved will Bijan Robinson and Drake London be? If Bijan gets the rock a lot, this is going to be a very good game because both of these run games are elite. The Falcons are the 6th best rushing team in the country, while Buffalo is 2nd. On top of that, Buffalo has also averaged the 3rd most points per game, while the Falcons are averaging just 19. However, if you take out that shutout loss against the Carolina Panthers, that was an absolute disaster class, they're averaging over 23 points per game. My prediction is that we see a good Falcons team come into this matchup. I think this is going to be another close game, but I also have Buffalo covering the spread and getting the win. And with that all said, we wrap up week 6 with what could potentially be the game of the year. Chicago coming back to Washington yet again to face off against the Commanders. The storyline we all know. The number 1 pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, Caleb Williams and the Bears, taking on the number 2 overall pick in that same draft, and Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders. Last year, we all know what happened when these two faced off.
Comes down to one last play, and it's going to be getting longer by the second. You're all the way back at the 30-yard line. Now you can step into it. Here comes the Hail Mary with the game on the line, and the ball is caught! Caught! It's a miracle!
But this year might be a little bit different. Chicago has the 11th highest scoring team in the league. Meanwhile, Washington has the best run team in the league. And with Jaden Daniels back, they dominated the Chargers, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Washington last week was able to stop the Chargers offense from doing really anything after midway through the second quarter. And despite Jaden Daniels being hurt for a couple of weeks, they still have a top 8 offense in points per game. With that being said, though, Washington has struggled against opponents who pass the ball a ton, and Caleb Williams and the Bears have so many skill position players who can eat. Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift, and the list goes on. If this Bears offense can get going early, Washington may be in trouble. And on the flip side, the Bears have struggled against the run, and the Washington does that better than any team in the country. My prediction for this game is it's going to be close, high scoring. Both of these offenses are going to go off, but I just think that the Chicago Bears are going to walk into Washington and take... I'm just kidding. Hail to the Commanders. Left hand up. Let's go, Jaden Daniels. I think the Commanders are going to win this game. Their defense proved last week that they can stop an elite offense. Their run game is the best in the league so far this season, and with Jaden Daniels back at quarterback, I trust their passing game too. I think the Washington Commanders are going to be too much for the Chicago Bears. I do think this will be a close game, and I do think the Bears will cover the spread. But I think Washington's going to win this one, and doing so, Jaden Daniels is going to prove that he is the better quarterback than Caleb Williams. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed watching this prediction video of the NFL Week 6. Let me know down below your biggest upset of the week. If you like this video, like, subscribe, stay tuned, follow the socials. I'll put them in the description, and I'll see you guys on Tuesday. Peace.